The transport ship landed on Valora Prime just as the three suns began to set. Lieutenant Una Park stood at the window and watched the sky turn purple and orange. She had traveled for 6 weeks through deep space to reach this world. Now she was finally here, and her stomach was full of butterflies. Una was 28 years old. She had black hair that she kept in a tight bun and dark brown eyes that her mother always said were too serious for someone so young. She was not tall for a human, but she stood straight and proud in her Galactic Fleet uniform. The blue fabric was pressed and clean. The silver buttons shined. She wanted to make a good first impression. A voice came through the speaker. "Lieutenant Park, please report to the main door. Your escort is waiting." Una picked up her small bag and walked through the empty halls of the ship. She was the only passenger. The integration program had sent her alone because they did not want to frighten the Valori with too many humans at once. One human was already a risk. Two might cause panic. She understood why. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. They came from Earth, a planet that other species called a death world. The gravity was strong. The weather was violent. The animals were dangerous. And humans were the most dangerous of all. They were endurance hunters who could chase prey for days without stopping. They had forward-facing eyes like predators. They showed their teeth when they were happy, which looked like a threat display to most aliens. The Valori knew all of this. They had studied humans from a distance for 50 years before agreeing to this cultural exchange. Even now, many of them thought it was a mistake. The main door opened with a soft hiss. Una stepped out onto the platform and felt the warm air of Valora Prime touch her face. It smelled like flowers and something sweet, like honey. Waiting for her was a Valori female. She was tall, almost 2 meters, with silver fur that caught the fading sunlight. Her ears were large and pointed, and they swiveled toward Una as she approached. Her eyes were golden, with pupils that widened and then narrowed as they adjusted to the human's presence. "Lieutenant Park," the Valori said. Her voice was smooth but careful. "I am Elder Bora. I will be your guide during your time at the Nursery Academy." Una bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect she had learned during her training. "Thank you, Elder Bora. I am honored to be here." Bora's ears twitched. She did not return the bow. Instead, she turned and began walking toward a waiting vehicle. "Come, we have a long journey to the Academy, and I wish to explain some things before you meet the cubs." The vehicle was smooth and quiet. It floated above the ground on some kind of magnetic field, and it moved fast through the purple twilight. Una sat across from Elder Bora and tried not to stare at her. The Valori looked like a wolf or a large dog that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Her paws had long fingers with short claws. Her tail was long and bushy, and it wrapped around her legs as she sat. "You will be assigned to Class 7 Blue," Bora said. "There are 18 cubs in this class. They are all between 5 and 7 years old in human terms. They are young enough to adapt but old enough to understand what you are. What I am." Una asked. Bora's golden eyes met hers. There was no warmth in them. "A predator, Lieutenant. A being from a death world. The cubs have been taught about humans. They know you are not here to hurt them. But knowing something and feeling it are 2 different things." Una nodded slowly. "I understand. I will be patient with them." "You must be more than patient," Bora said. "You must be careful. The cubs are sensitive to body language. They can smell fear and anger. They can hear your heartbeat if they are close enough. If you make sudden movements, if you raise your voice, if you show your teeth, they will be frightened. Some of them may panic. Do you understand?" "Yes, Elder Bora." The Valori studied her for a long moment. Then she looked away, out the window at the passing landscape. "I did not want this exchange. I told the council it was too dangerous. But they did not listen. They believe that humans and Valori can learn to live together. They believe that starting with the young is the best way. She paused. I think they are wrong. But I will do my duty. I will watch you, Lieutenant Park. I will watch everything you do. Yuna did not know what to say, so she said nothing. The academy was a large building made of white stone. It sat on a hill surrounded by tall trees with blue leaves. When the vehicle stopped, Yuna could hear sounds coming from inside. High-pitched voices, laughter, the sounds of children playing. For a moment, she forgot her nervousness. She forgot that she was on an alien world, surrounded by beings who feared her. She heard children laughing, and it made her smile. Then she remembered Bora's warning and quickly pressed her lips together to hide her teeth. They entered through a side door and walked down a long hallway. The walls were decorated with drawings and paintings made by small paws. Yuna saw pictures of families, of trees, of the three suns. Some of the drawings were good. Some were messy. All of them were full of color and life. Bora stopped in front of a door. Through the small window, Yuna could see inside. 18 small bodies sat in curved pods arranged in a half circle. Their fur was many colors. Brown and gray and white and red. Their ears were too big for their heads, and their paws were too big for their bodies. They were cubs, and they were beautiful. Are you ready? Bora asked. Yuna took a deep breath. Yes. The door opened. Every head turned toward her. Every ear flattened against every skull. Every tail tucked tight against every body. The room became perfectly silent. Yuna walked in slowly, keeping her hands visible, keeping her movements smooth. She stopped in the center of the room and looked at the cubs. They stared back at her with wide golden eyes full of fear. One cub in the back row began to whimper. The sound was soft and sad, like a puppy having a bad dream. Yuna's heart ached. She wanted to comfort them, but she did not know how. She was the monster in their nightmares. She was the predator from the death world. Nothing she said would change that. So she knelt down slowly, making herself smaller. She placed her hands on her knees and bowed her head. Hello, she said, her voice as soft as she could make it. My name is Yuna. I am going to be learning alongside you for a while. I know I look different. I know I'm strange to you, but I promise I will not hurt you. I am here to be your friend. No one moved. No one spoke. From the corner of the room, Elder Bora watched with cold, golden eyes. The human adjusted her collar in class. Cubs lowered their heads until it looked perfect. Part 2. The incident 3 weeks passed on Valora Prime. The three suns rose and set, and Yuna began to learn the rhythm of life at the nursery academy. She woke early each morning in her small room. She ate breakfast alone in the human section of the dining hall. Then she walked to Class 7 Blue and spent the day with the cubs. At first, the cubs would not come near her. They sat as far away as possible, pressed against the walls of the classroom, their golden eyes watching her every move. When she walked, they flinched. When she spoke, their ears went flat. When she reached for something, they held their breath. It was hard. Some nights, Yuna lay in her bed and wondered if she was doing any good at all. Maybe Elder Bora was right. Maybe humans and Valori were too different. Maybe some gaps were too wide to cross. But she did not give up. She could not. The integration program was counting on her. Humanity was counting on her. And somewhere deep in her heart, she believed that kindness could reach anyone, even frightened alien children. So she kept trying. She moved slowly. She spoke softly. She never showed her teeth. She learned to bow her head when the cubs looked at her, to lower her eyes, to make herself as small and unthreatening as possible. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. The first cub to approach her was a small male with fur the color of autumn leaves. His name was Taiho, and he was braver than the others. One day, during a lesson about the stars, he moved his pod a little closer to Yuna. The next day, he moved it closer still. By the end of the second week, he was sitting only 2 meters away from her. The other cubs watched Taiho with wide eyes. They whispered to each other in their high-pitched voices. Some of them thought he was crazy. Others thought he was the bravest Valori who ever lived. Then came Hana. Hana was a female cub with white fur and pale blue eyes. She was the smallest in the class and the shyest. She rarely spoke, and she always sat in the back corner, hiding behind her pod. But she watched Yuna constantly. Her blue eyes followed the human everywhere she went. One afternoon, Yuna dropped her writing tool. It rolled across the floor and stopped near Hana's pod. Yuna began to stand up to get it, but before she could move, Hana darted forward. Her small paw grabbed the tool, and then she froze. She was less than a meter from Yuna. Close enough to touch. Close enough to smell while Yuna held very still. She did not move. She did not breathe. Hana's ears trembled. Her tail was tucked so tight it had disappeared between her legs. But she did not run. Instead, she stretched out her paw and placed the writing tool on Yuna's desk. "Thank you, Hana," Yuna whispered. The cub's ears twitched. Then she turned and ran back to her pod as fast as her small legs could carry her. But something had changed. From that day forward, Hana sat a little closer to the front of the room. And sometimes, when Yuna looked at her, the cub would hold her gaze for a moment before looking away. These small victories kept Yuna going. She wrote about them in her reports to the integration program. She told herself that progress was slow but real. She began to hope that maybe, just maybe, this mission would succeed. Then came the day of the incident. It was a normal morning. The 3 suns were bright in the purple sky. The cubs were in their pods, listening to Elder Bara teach a lesson about Valori history. Yuna sat in her special chair at the side of the room, watching and learning. She wore her translation collar, as always. It was a slim silver band around her throat. The collar was important. It changed her human words into Valori sounds and Valori words into human sounds. Without it, she could not understand the cubs, and they could not understand her. But the collar did something else too. It changed the sound of her voice. Human voices were deep and rumbling to Valori ears. Without the collar, Yuna's voice would sound like the growl of a predator. It would trigger ancient instincts in the cubs, instincts that told them to run, to hide, to fight for their lives. The collar made her voice higher and softer, safe and friendly. She never thought about the collar. She put it on every morning and took it off every night. It was just part of her uniform. Until it broke in the middle of Elder Bora's lesson. Yuna felt a small shock on her neck. The collar sparked, and a tiny light on the side began to blink red. She frowned and reached up to adjust it. Without thinking, she tilted her chin up. She stretched her neck to see the blinking light. Her fingers touched the collar, trying to fix it. The room went silent. While Yuna looked up and froze. Every cub was staring at her. Their eyes were wide. Their ears were flat. Their bodies were completely still, like they had turned to stone. Taiho's autumn fur was standing on end. His small paws gripped the edges of his pod so hard that his claws left marks in the material. Hana had ducked entirely beneath her pod. Only the tip of her white tail was visible, trembling against the floor. Some cubs had their heads bowed so low their snouts touched their desks. Others had their eyes closed, like they were waiting for something terrible to happen. The whimpering started in the back row and spread through the room like a wave. Yuna did not understand. She looked around, confused and scared. What had she done? What was happening? Elder Bora? She whispered. The Valori instructor stood near the window. Her silver fur was stiff, and her golden eyes were fixed on Yuna's throat. On her hands. On the exposed curve of her neck where she had been touching the collar. "Do not move," Bora said. Her voice was tight and strange. Yuna obeyed. She sat frozen in her chair, her hands still near her throat, her chin still tilted up. For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Elder Bora walked across the room. Her steps were careful and quiet. She stopped in front of Yuna and looked down at her with an expression the human could not read. "Put your hand down," Bora said softly. "Lower your chin slowly." Yuna did as she was told. When her chin was level again, when her hand was in her lap, the cubs began to breathe. The whimpering stopped. The tension in the room eased, but only a little. "Class is over for today," Bora announced. "Cubs, return to your dens. We will continue tomorrow." The cubs did not need to be told twice. They fled from their pods and rushed toward the door, their small paws pattering against the floor. They did not run past Yuna. They went around her as far as possible, pressing against the walls to avoid getting close in seconds. The room was empty, except for Yuna and Elder Bora. Yuna's hands were shaking. "What did I do?" she asked. "Please, Elder Bora, tell me what I did wrong." The Valori looked at her for a long time. Then she sighed, and for the first time since Yuna had arrived, the coldness in her golden eyes began to soften. "Come with me," she said. "We need to talk." The human adjusted her collar in class. Cubs lowered their heads until it looked perfect. Part 3. The Revelation. Elder Bora led Yuna through the empty hallways of the academy. Their footsteps echoed against the white stone floors. Outside the windows, the three suns were beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. They stopped in a small room at the end of a quiet corridor. It was a private office with soft chairs and a low table. The walls were covered with photographs of Valori families and certificates written in flowing alien script. "Sit," Bora said, pointing to one of the chairs. Yuna sat. Her legs felt weak. Her mind was racing with questions and fears. She had done something terrible. She was sure of it. She had ruined everything. Bora did not sit. She stood by the window, her back to Yuna, her silver tail hanging still behind her. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked out at the darkening sky. "Do you know what you did in that classroom?" she finally asked. "I touched my collar," Yuna said. "It was broken. I was trying to fix it." "Yes, but that is not what the cubs saw." Bora turned around. Her golden eyes were serious but no longer cold. "You tilted your head back. You lifted your chin. You exposed your throat." Yuna blinked. "I was just looking at the light on the collar. It was blinking red." "I understand. But the cubs do not know about your collar. They do not understand human technology. What they saw was something very different." Bora paused. What they saw was a predator offering her throat. The words hung in the air between them. Yuna shook her head slowly. "I do not understand." Bora sighed and sat down across from her. She folded her paws in her lap and looked at Yuna with an expression that was almost gentle. "In Valori culture, the throat is sacred," she said. "It is the most vulnerable part of our body. Our ancestors were prey animals, Lieutenant. Long ago, before we became what we are now, we were hunted by predators. Great beasts with sharp teeth who would grab us by the throat and shake us until we died." Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. "Because of this," Bora continued, "exposing the throat is the greatest gesture a Valori can make. It means complete surrender, complete trust. It means I give you my life. I trust you not to take it." She paused. "Even between family members, even between mates who have been bonded for decades, it is done rarely and carefully. It is the most intimate, most vulnerable thing a Valori can do." Yuna's hand moved to her throat without thinking. And I did this in front of the cubs. Yes, by accident. They do not know that. Yuna felt sick. She had been so careful for 3 weeks. She had moved slowly, spoken softly, kept her teeth hidden. And then, in one careless moment, she had done something far more significant than she could have imagined. I scared them, she said. I made it worse. After all this time, I made it worse. But Bora shook her head slowly. No, Lieutenant. You did not scare them. That is not why they reacted the way they did. Then why? Bora leaned forward. Her golden eyes were bright in the fading light. Think about what you did. You are a human. A predator from a death world. A creature from their darkest stories. For 3 weeks, they've watched you, waiting for you to show your true nature. Waiting for you to prove that you are dangerous. I would never hurt them. I know that now. But they did not know it. They were afraid of you, Lieutenant. Truly afraid. Every day, they expected you to do something terrible. Bora paused. And then today, you did something impossible. You exposed your throat to them. Yuna was silent, trying to understand. A predator never exposes its throat, Bora said. Never. It goes against every instinct. It is a sign of weakness, of vulnerability. A predator would rather die than show such weakness to prey. She reached out and touched Yuna's hand. Her paw was soft and warm. But you did it. Without fear. Without hesitation. You tilted your head back and showed them the softest, most vulnerable part of your body. Do you understand what that means to them? Yuna's eyes were burning. She did not trust herself to speak. It means you trust them, Bora said softly. It means you believe they are safe. You, a human, a being from their nightmares, looked at a room full of Valori cubs and said, I am not afraid of you. I trust you with my life. A tear rolled down Yuna's cheek. She wiped it away quickly. The cubs were not scared, Bora continued. They were shocked, overwhelmed. They did not know how to react. No one has ever done such a thing before. No predator has ever trusted them like that. What happens now? Yuna asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. I do not know, Bora admitted. This is new territory for all of us. But I can tell you one thing. She squeezed Yuna's hand gently. Those cubs will never forget what you did today. For the rest of their lives, they will remember the human who showed them her throat. Yuna looked at the Valori elder. The coldness was gone from her eyes completely now. In its place was something that looked almost like respect. I was wrong about you, Bora said. I thought you were dangerous. I thought this exchange was a mistake. But you... She shook her head slowly. You are something I have never seen before. A predator with the heart of prey. A hunter who knows how to be gentle. I'm just trying to be kind, Yuna said. Bora smiled. It was the first time Yuna had seen her smile. Her teeth were sharp and white, but the expression was warm. Kindness, the elder said, is the most powerful force in the universe. The cubs are learning this now. And perhaps I am learning it too. They sat together in the quiet office as the suns finished setting outside. The sky turned from purple to black, and the first stars appeared. What should I do tomorrow? Yuna asked. Go to class, Bora said. Be yourself. Let the cubs come to you. She stood and walked to the door. But I think you will find that everything has changed. Yuna did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed and thought about throats and trust and frightened children with golden eyes. She thought about the whimpering cubs and the way they had bowed their heads. She thought about what it meant to be vulnerable in a universe full of danger. And somewhere in the darkness of her room, she began to hope. The human adjusted her collar in class. Cubs lowered their heads until it looked perfect. Part 4. The shift the next morning came too quickly. Yuna had barely slept, and her eyes were tired and red. But she got out of bed anyway. She put on her uniform. She fastened her translation collar around her throat. The technicians had fixed it during the night, and it worked perfectly now. She walked to the classroom slowly, her heart beating hard in her chest. She did not know what to expect. Would the cubs be afraid of her again? Would they hate her? Would they refuse to look at her? She stopped outside the door of Class 7 Blue and took a deep breath. Then she pushed the door open. The first thing she saw was Tahoe. The small cub with on-colored fur was standing right inside the door, as if he had been waiting for her. His golden eyes were wide, and his tail was tucked between his legs. He was nervous, but he did not run away. "Lieutenant Yuna," he said. His voice was small and shaky. "Your collar. It is crooked." Yuna blinked. She touched her throat and felt the translation collar. It was true. In her tiredness, she had put it on unevenly. One side was higher than the other. "Oh," she said. "Thank you for telling me. I will fix it." She started to reach up, but Tahoe stepped forward. His small paw touched her knee, and he looked up at her with those big golden eyes. "May I?" he asked. Yuna did not understand what he was asking. "May you what?" "Fix it." "May I fix your collar?" Behind Tahoe, the other cubs were watching. 18 pairs of golden eyes, all focused on the small cub and the human. The room was completely silent. Yuna felt something in her chest, something warm and painful and wonderful all at once. She understood now. This was important. This was Tahoe's way of responding to what she had done yesterday. She had shown him her throat. Now he wanted to show her something in return. She knelt down slowly, bringing herself to his level. Her eyes were stinging, but she blinked back the tears. "Yes, Tahoe," she said softly. "You may fix my collar." The little cub's paws were trembling as he reached up. His claws clicked softly against her uniform as he stretched toward her neck. Yuna held perfectly still. She kept her chin level and her eyes forward, letting him work. Tahoe's small fingers touched the collar. He adjusted it carefully, moving it to the left, then to the right, until it sat perfectly straight on her throat. He smoothed the fabric around it, making sure there were no wrinkles. Then he stepped back and looked at his work. His ears were still flat against his head. His tail was still tucked. But there was something new in his eyes. Something that looked like pride. Something that looked like hope. "It is perfect now," he said. "Thank you." "Tahoe," Yuna whispered. And then something amazing happened. Hannah, the shy cub with white fur and blue eyes, crept forward from her pod. She moved slowly, her body low to the ground, her tail dragging behind her. When she reached Yuna, she stopped and looked at the collar. "I want to check it too," she said quietly. "To make sure." Yuna nodded. She could not speak. Her throat was too tight with emotion. Hannah reached up and touched the collar. She did not move it. She just ran her small paw along the edge, smoothing a crease that was not really there. Then she looked at Yuna and gave a tiny nod. "It is good," she said. Another cub came forward. Then another. Then another. One by one, all 18 cubs approached Yuna. Each one touched her collar. Each one adjusted something small, something invisible, something that did not need fixing. They smoothed the fabric. They straightened the band. They made sure everything was perfect. Yuna stayed on her knees, tears streaming down her face as the cubs surrounded her. Their small paws were gentle on her neck. Their soft fur brushed against her skin. They were grooming her, she realized. In their own way, they were taking care of her. She had shown them her throat, and now they were showing her that they accepted the gift. Elder Bora watched from the doorway. Her golden eyes were wet, and she made no effort to hide it. When the last cub had finished, Yuna looked around at them. They were still nervous. They were still a little afraid, but something had changed between them. A bridge had been built across the gap that separated their species. It was small and fragile, but it was real. "Thank you," Yuna said to all of them. "Thank you for accepting me." Taiho's tail gave a small wag. It was the first time she had seen any of the cubs wag their tails at her. "You are welcome, Lieutenant Yuna," he said. And then, so quietly she almost did not hear it, he added, "You are packed now." The days that followed were different. The cubs still moved carefully around Yuna. They still watched her with big eyes and flat ears. But they no longer kept their distance. They sat closer to her during lessons. They asked her questions about Earth and humans and the stars. They showed her their drawings and their toys. Every morning when Yuna entered the classroom, one of the cubs would check her collar. Sometimes it was Taiho. Sometimes it was Hana. Sometimes it was one of the others. They took turns, as if it was an important duty that they shared. Yuna learned to keep her collar slightly crooked on purpose. She liked the way the cubs would rush to fix it. She liked the feeling of their small paws on her neck, gentle and trusting. "They are bonding with you," Elder Bora said one afternoon, after the cubs had gone home. "I have never seen anything like it." "They are good children," Yuna said. "They are," Bora agreed. "But this is not just about them. They see something in you, Lieutenant. Something that makes them feel safe." She paused. "Do you know what Taiho told the other cubs?" "He told them that you are the bravest being he has ever met. He said that anyone who can show their throat to strangers must have a heart made of stars." Yuna laughed softly. "I was just fixing my collar." "I know," Bora said, smiling. "But to them, it was so much more. To them, it was everything." That night, Yuna wrote a long report to the integration program. She told them about the collar incident and what it meant. She told them about the cubs and their grooming ritual. She told them about Taiho and Hana and the bridge that was being built between two species. At the end of the report, she wrote something personal. "I came here thinking I would teach the Valori about humanity. But they are teaching me something too. They are teaching me that vulnerability is not weakness. They are teaching me that the bravest thing you can do is trust someone with your life. I do not know what the future holds for humans and Valori, but I believe now, more than ever, that we can be friends. We can be family. We can be pack." She sent the report and went to bed. For the first time since arriving on Valora Prime, she slept peacefully. The human adjusted her collar in class. Cubs lowered their heads until it looked perfect. Part 5. The past 6 months passed on Valora Prime. The three suns rose and set more than 100 times. The blue leaves on the trees changed to silver, and then to gold, and then back to blue again. The seasons turned, and Yuna watched them change from the windows of the nursery academy. She had become part of the rhythm of life here. She woke early each morning and walked to Class 7 Blue. She sat with the cubs during their lessons. She played with them during breaks. She learned their names, their personalities, their fears and dreams. And they learned hers. Taiho was still the bravest. He sat next to Yuna every day now, his autumn fur brushing against her uniform. He asked endless questions about Earth. What did the sky look like? What did the food taste like? Were there really oceans so big you could not see the other side? Yuna answered every question patiently. She told him about the blue sky and the yellow sun. She told him about pizza and ice cream and chocolate cake. She told him about the ocean waves and the sound they made when they crashed against the shore. Hana had become Yuna's shadow. The shy cub with white fur followed her everywhere, always staying close, always watching. She did not talk much, but she did not need to. Her presence was enough. When Yuna sat down, Hana sat next to her. When Yuna walked, Hana walked behind her. When Yuna smiled, Hana's tail would wag, just a little. The other cubs had changed too. They no longer flinched when Yuna moved. They no longer pressed against the walls to avoid her. Some of them even let her touch them, resting their heads against her hand or climbing into her lap during story time. It was more than Yuna had ever dreamed. Possible. But all good things come to an end. The message arrived on a cold morning when the suns were hidden behind gray clouds. Yuna read it in her room, alone, and felt her heart break into 1,000 pieces. Her assignment was over. The integration program had reviewed her reports and decided that the mission was a success. Human-Valori relations had improved because of her work. She was being reassigned to a new posting, a space station on the edge of explored space. She had 1 week to say goodbye. Yuna did not know how to tell the cubs. She put it off for 1 day, then 2, then 3. She could not bear to see the look in their eyes when they learned she was leaving, but Elder Bora knew. The news had spread through the academy, and the other teachers were talking about it. On the 4th day, Bora came to Yuna's room. "You have to tell them," she said gently. "They deserve to know." "I know," Yuna whispered. "I just do not want to hurt them." "You will hurt them more if you leave without saying goodbye." So Yuna told them. She gathered the cubs in the classroom and knelt in front of them, just as she had on her first day. Their golden eyes watched her with trust and love and curiosity. "I have something to tell you," she said. "Something hard." The cubs were silent. Taiho's ears went flat. Hana pressed closer to Yuna's side. "I have to leave," Yuna said. "My people are sending me to another place. I will not be able to stay here anymore." For a moment, there was only silence. Then the whimpering began. It was worse than the first day. The cubs did not just cry. They howled. They pressed against Yuna, clutching at her uniform with their small paws, burying their faces in her arms. Taiho climbed into her lap and wrapped his arms around her neck. Hana pressed her face against Yuna's shoulder and would not let go. "Do not leave," Taiho begged. "Please, Lieutenant Yuna, stay with us. Be our pack." Yuna held them and cried with them. She had not known that leaving would be this hard. She had not known that her heart could feel so full and so empty at the same time. The last day came, too quickly. Yuna woke early and dressed in her uniform for the final time. She fastened her collar around her throat, leaving it slightly crooked, as she always did. Then she walked to Class 7 Blue. When she opened the door, she stopped and stared. The cubs were arranged in a perfect semicircle in the center of the room. They stood straight and tall, their ears forward, their tails held high. They had clearly been practicing. Their golden eyes were serious and focused. Taiho stepped forward. His autumn fur was brushed smooth, and his voice was steady even though his eyes were wet. "Lieutenant Yuna," he said formally, "we have made you something. Please accept this gift." Behind him, Hana moved forward. She was carrying a small object wrapped in soft fabric. Her paws were trembling, but she held the gift carefully, like it was the most precious thing in the world. Yuna knelt down. Hana placed the gift in her hands. "Open it," Taiho said. Yuna unwrapped the fabric slowly. Inside was a collar, but it was not a translation device. It was something else entirely. It was made of woven fur. Threads of autumn red and silver and deep brown were twisted together into a beautiful band. The fur was soft and warm, and it shimmered in the light from the windows. "It is our fur," Hana whispered. "All of us. We made it together." Yuna looked at the collar in her hands. She could see the different colors now. Taiho's autumn red, Hana's pale silver, brown and gray and white and gold from all the other cubs. 18 different shades, woven together into something beautiful. "So you remember us," Taiho said. "So you remember your pack. Wherever you go in the stars, you will carry us with you." Yuna could not speak. Tears were streaming down her face, and her hands were shaking. She lifted the collar to her throat and tried to put it on, but her fingers would not work. The cubs moved forward without hesitation. 18 pairs of small paws reached up to help her. They fastened the collar around her neck. They adjusted it, smoothed it, made it perfect. They worked together, taking turns, each one adding their touch. When they finished, Yuna looked around at them. Her cubs, her pack. "I love you," she said. "All of you. I will never forget you." Taiho's tail wagged. Hannah pressed her face against Yuna's hand. The other cubs gathered close, surrounding her with warmth and love. Elder Bora watched from the doorway. Her silver fur was wet with tears, and she smiled the warmest smile Yuna had ever seen. "You have done something remarkable," Bora said. "You came here as a stranger, a predator from a death world. You are leaving as family." Yuna stood up slowly. The cubs moved with her, staying close, unwilling to let her go. "I will come back," she promised. "I do not know when, but I will come back." "We will wait," Taiho said. "Pack always waits for Pack." Yuna walked out of the nursery academy with 18 small cubs following behind her. They walked her all the way to the transport platform, where her ship was waiting. They stood in a line and watched as she climbed the ramp dot at the top. She turned and looked back at them. The 3 suns were rising behind them, painting the sky in purple and gold. The cubs looked so small standing there, but their eyes were bright and their tails were held high. Yuna touched the collar around her throat. The woven fur was warm against her skin. "Goodbye," she called to them. "Be brave. Be kind. And never forget what I told you about humans." "What did you tell us?" Taiho called back. Yuna smiled. She did not hide her teeth. "That we are scary on the outside," she said, "but soft on the inside. Just like you." The door of the ship closed. The engines hummed, and Lieutenant Yuna Park rose into the sky, carrying a piece of Valora Prime against her throat far below. 18 Valori cubs watched the ship disappear into the clouds. They would remember this day for the rest of their lives. They would tell their children about the human who showed them her throat. They would tell their grandchildren about the predator who became their pack, and somewhere in the records of the Galactic Integration Program, a single line was added to the official report. First successful emotional bonding between human and Valori juveniles. Species classification upgraded from tolerable coexistence to compatible pack bonding species. But Yuna did not know about that report. She was too busy looking out the window of her ship, watching the purple planet grow smaller below her, touching the collar around her throat, and crying happy tears. She was not alone anymore. She never would be again. She was Pack.